Hi everyone, my name is Alexis Rumps, and today I will be taking you through my lifespan timeline for Kinesiology 372 Motor Learning and Development. So this is my introduction. The picture on the top left is me around 6 months of age when I was a baby, and then the bottom right picture there is older me around age 19. This was last summer at the Tulip Festival in Holland. So I was born on March 23rd, 2005 in Port Huron, Michigan, and I spent my childhood growing up there. Growing up, I was also a competitive dancer, as you can see in the picture in the middle there, and it made me who I am today. So I cheered in high school and also at my freshman year here at SVSU as well, and now I love to spend time in the outdoors, reading, going on walks, and spending time with my family. And then this is my family on the right-hand side of the screen here. This is us on Mackinac Island last May, and Mackinac Island is one of my favorite places to be. And so I live with my mom, my stepdad, my brother, and my sister, as well as our 3 dogs and our chickens. So moving towards reflexive movements observed in infancy, reflexive movements, which are also called reflexive behaviors or reflexes, are thought of to be automatic involuntary responses to stimuli that are observed in infants. So these are broken down into 3 subcategories: primitive, postural, and locomotive. So starting out with primitive reflexes, they are said to serve the functions of protection. So for example, the palmar grasp reflex. This is stimulated when a gentle pressure is applied to the palm of an infant's hand, and in response, the infant will tightly grasp around the object with their fingers, sort of like holding on for dear life. The palmar grasp reflex is present at birth until approximately 2 months of age, and the persistence of specifically primitive reflexes can indicate delays in future motor ability and is typically an indicator of an underlying neurological issue. Moving on to postural reflexes, they are said to serve automatically to maintain appropriate posture in changing environments. So, postural reflexes such as the parachute reflex are an example of this. And the parachute reflex is stimulated when the infant is held in a vertical position and a loss of support is demonstrated. So, in response, the infant will spread their fingers and extend their arms to sort of break their fall. And this is notable around 6 to 9 months of age and persists throughout the lifespan as a protective mechanism. Lastly, locomotor reflexes are thought to be precursors to voluntary reflexes and can serve as practice for later motor milestones. So, reflexive behaviors are not voluntary, however, they do serve significant purpose in survival and development. So, the stepping reflexes is a locomotor reflex that serves as a practice mechanism for walking. This typically appears around 2 to 3 months of age and can typically increase the walking process if this reflex is performed. And then these are 3 pictures of me and my little sister actually demonstrating reflexive movements that I mentioned on the previous slide. So the far left picture is me at the petting zoo, I think holding some like donkey treats in my hand, and it's applying pressure to the palm of my hand, so I'm grasping around it to hold on to it. The middle picture is my little sister at the beach being held by my dad. He's trying to have her touch the water, but she's not liking it very much, so she'll bunch up and extend her arms to try to protect her. And then the far right picture is me at one of my parents' friends' weddings when I was little, and I am dancing on the dance floor with an older boy. So, this was me practicing the stepping reflex because I wasn't very easy on my feet yet. So, just kind of getting a feel for walking there. Moving on to voluntary movements, these are said to be purposeful, controlled movements by infants that are initiated by the brain, which is in contrast to reflexive movements. So these movements tend to develop over time for the infant as they gain control of their muscles and become more familiar with their nervous system. So the first one I will mention today is head control, and it is one of the earliest signs of voluntary movements in infants. It allows them to lift, turn, and control their head, and this is typically observable between 3 to 4 months of age. Next, reaching and grasping is another voluntary reflex that is demonstrated by the infant reaching for objects, first with both hands, and then as they get older and more advanced in this skill, they will reach for things with one hand. This is typically observed around 4 months of age. And lastly, walking is another voluntary movement that develops gradually for infants. They will first start with the stepping reflex as noted in the reflexive movements, and then they will take steps with support and then ultimately independently. And this movement is typically observed between 10 and 18 months of age. And then this diagram on the far right here is actually from our textbook, and I thought it did a very good job of kind of breaking down by the month milestones of what we should be seeing from infants in terms of motor ability. And then these are little pictures of me and my little brother actually demonstrating voluntary movements that I mentioned on the previous slide. So the one on the far left is us reading a book, and my little brother is practicing head control by turning his head to focus on the book that I'm reading to him. The middle picture is my little brother in his crib. My mom's taking a picture of him, and she's probably holding something behind the camera to get him to look, and so he's reaching and grasping to try to grab that object. And then the picture on the far right is me walking. I'm trying to mow the yard for my dad. And so I'm walking behind my little bubble mower there that I had. Moving on to childhood foundational skills. Foundational skills in childhood refer to sort of the building blocks for more complex movements to develop into adulthood. So, the first one I will mention today is running, which is characterized as an extension of walking. It demonstrates opposite arm and leg action, which is similar to walking, although it doesn't have a double support phase, but rather a flight phase where neither foot is in contact with the ground for a short amount of time. In reference to skill maturity, adequate strength and balance are needed to become airborne, as well as to catch oneself when they land, as well as to maintain balance to keep going. And then a skill that is developed following the mastery of this skill is riding a bike. So the picture on the bottom left here is me running at my first grade field day in elementary school. You had to soak a sponge in water and then run it to another classmate. So that is me practicing running, and then the picture on the right is me at my grandma's house getting a new bike for my birthday. So biking practices running by pedaling. Next, jumping is described as the process of projecting the body into the air by the force generated either by one or both legs and then landing back on one or both feet. This can be done in a forward, backward, or sideways motion, although it is related to walking and jumping. Walking and running, jumping poses a larger movement barrier for children to overcome and master, just meaning it takes more time for them to complete. So, in reference to skill maturity, jumping is said to require a certain amount of bravery, appropriate postural control, and use of the whole body in a coordinated movement. And a skill that can be performed following the mastery of this skill is dancing. So, the bottom picture here on the left is me jumping on stage in one of my recitals, and then the picture on the right is another picture of me kind of practicing dancing. Next, kicking is described as the process of striking an object with the foot. There are different types of kicking, which is influenced and dependent on the force of what you are trying to kick. So, in terms of skill maturity, a child must possess adequate perceptual abilities, which include eye and foot coordination, to be able to perform the skill. And a skill that can be performed following the mastery of the skill is playing soccer. So the picture on the bottom left here is me playing soccer and attempting to kick the ball. I did not like soccer as a little girl. I did not like running. So in the picture on the right, that is me posing for the camera, pretending to like soccer. But after this picture, I bet you I begged my mom to pull me out because I did not like running and playing soccer, which is why I chose dance. Moving on, I have set up my adulthood projected timeline to reflect my current age of 20, my projected age of 96 years, which is the age that the longevity score game gave me. So I broke down my timeline into key milestones that I hope to achieve my life, while incorporating how personal health, lifestyle habits may impact this, as well as aging. So I did not get to reflect what all I hope to accomplish in this timeline due to space. Um, but yeah, so following in a few years here, I hope to graduate with my MSOT. I then hope to find a job and hopefully travel a little bit. Then I hope to get married and start a family, then advance in my career, and then a long time down the road, start thinking about retirement, and then after I retire, just to live out the rest of my life. So, in reference to personal health and habits so far, I have been pretty healthy. Starting in my teenage years, I did experience some health issues that ended up continuing into my early adulthood. But as the years go by, and by seeking out medical help, I've been able to manage those issues quite well. In terms of lifestyle habits, I would say I have very good habits in place to maintain my health. And as time progresses, aging progresses and changes aspects of your body and everyday life. So, aging is broken down into two subcategories: chronological and biological aging. Chronological aging refers to the number of years that we have been alive, and biological aging refers to the physiological adaptations that occur within our body to accommodate the aging. So, shifting factors in adulthood would include family history and then movement and physical activity. So, the impact family history and genetics play in the world of aging is significant. It can affect lifespan, disease susceptibility, and the rate of physical and cognitive decline. So, during middle aged adulthood, physical activity levels tend to decline further in most people as women go through menopause and men experience a reduction in their sex hormones. Coincidentally, not until retirement age do we see an increase in activity levels actually, as most retired individuals end up taking walking, swimming, cycling, and dancing up as an activity to perform throughout their day-to-day life. And this is my summary. So overall, infancy, childhood, and adulthood together make up the lifespan timeline. So on the far right, I have a picture of me in infancy, in the middle in childhood, and then on the far right, adulthood so far. So the reflexive and voluntary movements in infancy to the foundational skills in childhood lead to adulthood, which possesses limits to physical activity and motor development. So from this project and correlation and connection between all stages of life have become clear to me and have given me a better understanding of how life progresses from infancy all the way to adulthood. So thank you for watching, and I appreciate your time.